Most people try to be responsible with their money. You work for your income, your salary arrives in your bank account, and then the bills and expenses take their share almost immediately. You try to build savings, you try to stay out of debt, and you try to plan ahead so nothing catches you off guard. On paper, everything looks organized. You are doing what you're supposed to do. But even when you finally build an emergency fund, even when you see that number sitting in your account, it still doesn't feel like enough. You might have saved for months, maybe even years. You made sacrifices, you skipped things you wanted, you moved small amounts into savings again and again. Eventually, you reach a number that once felt big, maybe $1,000, maybe $3,000, maybe more. And for a moment, it feels good. You open your bank account and see your emergency fund sitting there. It looks solid, it looks responsible, it looks like protection. But the feeling doesn't last long, because after a while, that same number starts to feel small. Think about it. You've probably felt this. At first, having any emergency savings feels like a huge step. You feel safer than before. But then your mind starts running through possibilities. What if the car breaks down? What if a medical bill shows up? What if you lose your job? What if rent increases? Suddenly, the number that once felt strong starts to feel fragile. This happens to a lot of people. One reason emergency funds never feel big enough is simple. Emergencies are unpredictable. When you pay your monthly bills, you know roughly what to expect. Rent is predictable, groceries are predictable, utilities stay within a range. But emergencies don't follow a plan. They don't ask permission. They don't happen at convenient times. And because you don't know how big the next emergency might be, your brain assumes it could be large. But here's the problem. Your imagination doesn't have limits. Your savings do. Your mind can imagine worst-case scenarios, months without income, expensive repairs, major medical costs, large unexpected bills. Compared to those possibilities, almost any emergency fund feels small, even a good one. Think about it. If someone asked you whether $5,000 is a lot of money, you might say yes. But if someone asked whether $5,000 is enough to handle anything life throws at you, the answer suddenly feels less certain. That uncertainty makes savings feel smaller than they really are. You've probably felt this. Another reason emergency funds never feel big enough is that life keeps getting more expensive. When you first set a savings goal, it might have felt realistic. Maybe you aimed for 3 months of expenses, maybe 6 months. But expenses don't stay the same. Rent increases, food costs more, transport costs more, services cost more. Over time, the number you saved covers less than it used to. Even if your emergency fund grows, the cost of living often grows with it, so the finish line keeps moving. This happens to a lot of people. You might reach your goal and then realize the goal isn't enough anymore. What once felt secure now feels temporary, and that creates a constant feeling that you're behind even when you're actually making progress. Salary day can make this feeling even stronger. When your salary arrives, your account balance looks healthy for a moment, then the bills start leaving. Rent disappears, utilities disappear, groceries get paid, transportation costs come out. After the expenses settle, the everyday balance looks smaller again. And suddenly your emergency fund stands out. It becomes the only number that looks strong, the only cushion between stability and trouble. That responsibility can make the number feel fragile, because you know that if something goes wrong, that money has to handle it. Think about it. Your emergency fund isn't just savings. It represents security, stability, peace of mind. And anything that carries that much importance can start to feel insufficient. Another reason emergency funds feel too small is psychological. Saving money requires effort and discipline. Every time you move money into savings, you reduce what you can spend today. You say no to things, you delay purchases, you make trade-offs. Because saving requires sacrifice, your brain treats the result very seriously. You want that effort to feel worth it. You want the number to feel strong. But when it doesn't feel strong enough, the disappointment is real. You've probably felt this. You check your savings, and instead of feeling proud, you feel uncertain. You wonder whether you should save more. You wonder whether you're prepared enough, even when the answer might be yes. Daily spending also affects how emergency funds feel. Money moves constantly. Small purchases add up. Bills go and come. The everyday balance rises and falls. But the emergency fund often stays still. It becomes the one number you protect, the number you don't want to touch, the number that represents safety. And because you protect it, it can start to feel untouchable, almost imaginary. You know the money is there, but you don't want to use it unless something serious happens. So instead of feeling like available support, it feels like a last line of defense. And last lines of defense always feel too thin. This happens to a lot of people. There's also the fear of losing progress. Building an emergency fund takes time, sometimes a long time. Seeing that number grow creates a sense of achievement, but emergencies reduce that number quickly. One unexpected expense can erase months of saving, and that possibility makes the fund feel fragile before anything happens. Think about it. You might have saved for a year to build your emergency fund, but a single repair could reduce it in one day. That imbalance makes the fund feel smaller than it actually is. Another reason emergency funds never feel big enough is uncertainty about the future. Even when your situation is stable, the future is unknown. Jobs change, expenses change, life changes. So instead of thinking about what your emergency fund can handle today, your mind keeps asking what it might need to handle tomorrow. And tomorrow always feels bigger. You've probably felt this. You reach a savings milestone, and instead of relaxing, you immediately start thinking about the next one. 1,000 becomes 3,000, 3,000 becomes 5,000, 5,000 becomes 10,000. There is always another number that feels safer. But here's the problem. Perfect safety doesn't exist. No emergency fund can eliminate uncertainty completely. Even very large savings cannot protect against every possible situation. And waiting to feel completely secure can mean you never feel secure at all. This happens to a lot of people. But here's something important to understand. If your emergency fund sometimes feels too small, it doesn't mean you're failing. It doesn't mean you're unprepared. And it doesn't mean you've done something wrong. Sometimes it simply means you understand that life is unpredictable. Sometimes it means you're thinking ahead. Sometimes it means you care about stability. The truth is, emergency funds are not supposed to make you feel invincible. They're meant to make you safer than you were before. And safer is different from perfect. The truth is, most people who worry about their emergency fund are actually doing the right things. They are saving, they are planning, they are preparing for the future. They're not careless, they're not irresponsible. They're trying to build stability step by step. But they're living in a world where uncertainty never disappears completely. And that's why emergency funds rarely feel big enough. Because the goal isn't to eliminate every risk. The goal is simply to be more prepared than you were yesterday. And sometimes the real peace of mind doesn't come from reaching a perfect number. It comes from knowing that you kept going, even when it felt like it would never be enough.